Friday Heaters, we're back on the podcast. My guest today is Kibum Kim, co-director of Commonwealth and Council, a contemporary art gallery in Koreatown, Los Angeles. Under he and fellow co-director Young Chung's leadership, the gallery centers around community, solidarity, and equitable support for artists, including the Council Fund, which redirects customary collector discounts toward artist-driven support. Let's heat it up. Kibum, thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me.
We're just catching you as you're returning from, I don't know when this podcast will air, but right now we're catching you on the return from Miami Basel. How was the year for you in Miami?
Well, to be honest, I think we're going through a pretty challenging year, and some may say that we're going through a paradigm shift of sorts in the art world.
Yeah.
And I think in many ways that bore out in Miami. Being completely candid, it wasn't the most robust, well-attended fair in our experience compared to our prior experience in Miami.
Yeah.
And I think that some of that has to do with just how much excitement was around Paris. Mm-hmm. I mean, you didn't come.
I did not come. I was not there this year. Sorry, Heaters. I missed the boat.
And a lot of our kind of friends from Los Angeles didn't attend this year.
Yeah.
And so it was a different kind of dynamic and rhythm, I would say.
Okay.
And I hope that next year will be a time when many of us. Sorry, I'm trying not to say anything negative, but it's just
No, I don't. It's not super negative. What about the art that you saw? Do you feel like people brought great art? I've learned that people still assess was it a good fair? Not necessarily just depending on sales and the vibe, but did you see art that you got excited about?
Yeah, our booth was great.
Of course.
But no, I thought some of the museum shows were good. It was nice to see Jack Pearson's work at the Bass Museum. I really enjoyed the Joyce Pensato show at ICM Miami. And, at this point, so Jason Farago, the art critic for the New York Times, wrote up a roundup of all of the Basels that it attended this year. And he spoke to this kind of regionalism that might be a trend that we're seeing across the fairs, particularly in Art Basel Hong Kong and Art Basel Miami, the kinds of audiences that they might serve and ergo the kind of art that you might be seeing.
Yeah.
And I mean, this is super reductive, but one of the things for Miami is you tend to bring more colorful, kind of vibrant kind of artworks, perhaps. And of course, for a long time, Miami has served as being, with a geographic and kind of cultural position as the gateway between North and Latin America.
Yeah.
And I think that continues to play out. Of course, with the current political moment, it's not necessarily the most friendly place for people from Latin America to travel to, the States. Something that I think about a lot is how culture and tastes are being shaped by the conditions of not just our industry, but in music and fashion, and particularly what stuff that we see on phones do.
General creative culture.
Yeah, and there's this interesting book I read whose title I forget. It's by
Sign
Kyle.
me up for that list.
It's by Kyle Chayka, and basically the thesis of this book, which resonated with me a lot, is this flattening of culture that you might see, and largely it is because of social media and the phone.
Yeah.
So you might go to Copenhagen, you might go to Tokyo, you might go to Cape Town, and I think one of the examples that the writer starts with is when I go on my phone and I look up coffee shops to get my cappuccino, you get the same kind of aesthetic with I don't know, whatever is kind of trendy at that moment,
clean countertops and kind of minimalism or whatever, choose your
and with certain kinds of ferns and
the
and that kind of registers to many of us because it's something familiar and it becomes expected. We all remember, I am 43.
I am 41.
Like we all remember the days when we used to travel and, you know, you would really get this like very particular, specific and, you know, hopefully unique experiences.
Yeah.
And that sense of discovery you might have just walking around streets. But, you know, these days, like we're so reliant on our phone and thus like we're really reliant on what the algorithm feeds us. One of the best aspects of my job and to be a participant in the art world in any role is the, you know, global community of friends that we're able to build.
For sure. Yeah.
But sometimes it feels like we travel around the world to look at the same art by the same artists. And I mean, like I'm one of the same assholes who's traveling to all these things. I feel like maybe that kind of fatigue may be setting in, and perhaps organically there is more kind of like region specific tastes and audiences that are developing.
Since Paris like took up a lot of oxygen with Basel there, people are traveling all over the world to that fair, but then Miami or Hong Kong have to rely more on the local community.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
And so like I'm kind of reiterating what you're saying, but then you're tailoring what you offer to that market based upon maybe a more local regional sense.
We always kind of do that. And listen, running a gallery, you do have to come up with these strategies. And I think for perhaps some of the bigger galleries with a presence all over the world, their strategy across art fairs is like we really triple down on and represent a wide breadth of our program at each fair. So you're gonna see A to Z artists, one or two examples by them at almost every fair. And that's a sort of marketing, right? It's like, this is who we are.
Yeah.
And this is representation of what kinds of artists we work with and the artwork and the particular kinds of taste and aesthetics that we stand for. I think particularly for smaller galleries like ours, we do try to think about the particular audiences that we might be seeing at the fairs, and of course we try to time it a little bit with certain kinds of exciting projects our artists might have, particularly that may be close in that region. Just this morning I was on the phone with a great client friend from Singapore, and we were going through his potential travel schedule for the next year, and it does seem like you could literally travel every single week.
Yeah, there's so many fairs.
A fair or a biennial.
Yeah.
And like we deeply feel that this really is the attention economy.
You guys do as a gallery, or
yeah,
just
yeah. And I think to be able to stand out and to bring art and put on presentations in whatever context it is, but that's the challenge.
Yeah.
And but the funny thing is like the goalposts are always moving.
Yeah, right. It's always a moving target. Yeah.
Yeah. And like kind of like there's a enthusiasm towards particular regions. Like I haven't done this that long, but I started working at the gallery in 2018 in earnest. Even within that short time frame, like it was all about like China at one point, and now you go to West Bund in Shanghai and all the museums have closed, or like obviously COVID had a huge thing to do with all that. I'm from Korea, and there's huge excitement and like incredible collecting of art a few years back. That's calmed down a bit. Now it seems like everyone is looking towards Western Asia. Like both Frieze and Art Basel have announced inaugural editions of fairs in Doha and Abu Dhabi. And a lot of interested in India, whose economy is doing great.
Right.
And a lot of luxury brands are looking towards the market as well. We do think about these things. We do run a business, like we run a gallery, and at the end of the day, like we want to sell art and keep the operation going, and hopefully our artists have enough monies to keep their studios going. We do think also a lot about conditions and contexts and platforms in which like the most exciting art can be made. And like something that keeps me up at night is, because we're in the attention economy, we have so much noise to cut through. the art world, I mean, if you believe in this like particular kind of romanticist notion of artists, the autonomy that they should have for radical experimentation and to really like challenge and provoke us, these are often like nuanced conversations that can't be captured in
That's a good point. I never thought about that.
in a 2-minute conversation in an art fair
Yeah.
or like on an Instagram post, like
Yeah.
something that draws people's eyes.
Yeah.
And you know, we're always negotiating that kind of tension. Like I'm not
Mhm.
like some purist who
Yes, anti-social media or
no, I mean I
But
did
kind of-
delete all my
yeah.
pictures from my Instagram grid, but I do think about how we can engage with the sorts of platforms in which we communicate and still
keep it deep and meaningful. And
yeah, I'm happy that you're doing this podcast because it's great to see what you're doing with the Instagram account on Friday Heaters. But you know, hopefully these sorts of platforms allow us to have kind of slower conversations and talk about more things.
yeah, we've thought, I mean, it's been what you just described is a part of what we've not necessarily struggled with, but a challenge that we face is like, it's really fun to demystify art, try and make it more accessible. And I just, we play around a lot and go into galleries and connect with artists and have fun and tell that story about art because it's so intimidating to so many people. And that's been really satisfying and gratifying. But threading that line between having it remain in that kind of playful banter when so much of what we delight in and are in pursuit of is like this deeper interrogation and experience of art. And so the podcast and longer form stuff that we're trying to figure out.
And like these kinds of platforms will continue to evolve and change, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like who knows? Maybe 10 years from now we won't have art fairs.
Yeah.
Maybe 10 years from now we won't be listening to podcasts. But there's going to be something else in which we're exchanging ideas and information.
Yeah, well said.
And we have to continue to evolve. But like, what I like think about a lot is like, okay, like, some of our artists' works, like it takes me like the short version takes me 5 minutes to explain, how do we translate that in this particular kind of attention economy we're in? Art fairs are not the ideal places in which to have lengthy conversations with folks. But it is a great place for many of us to travel and congregate. And what I realized in this business is like, let's say like you're my great collector and patron. You're like a great collector and patron that I really want to like make a connection with.
Sure.
You meet them and you're like so excited and you just want to like deepen the. But what I realized is like, no, it's like chill out when you first meet someone. Just say hello. They are probably distracted and thinking about a million things.
Yeah.
And it's like an accumulation of like all of these touch points,
Mm-hmm.
So you see these people across multiple art fairs or openings at museums and things like that.
Yeah.
And maybe at a certain point you'll have a 10-minute conversation.
Yeah.
Maybe at a certain point you'll have like a proper dinner together.
Mm-hmm.
I think the really deep, meaningful relationships take time, like particularly in the market's not as strong and times like these. There's like that desire to really just like hook something or someone.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel it too.
Well, it's not as frenetic too. So I feel like we're all taking more time, like as like, collectors are taking more time to look at work and make choices. I'm sure you guys are like, okay, things are slower. So you have more time to like focus on cultivating one relationship here or there, maybe more than just.
I don't have more time, but.
Well, everywhere I see you, it's some other crazy exotic location.
Well, no, but part of it is like, and the thing is, I actually think like I do think it's healthier that we're having these longer conversations, and like this is something that we're talking. Not to like spill the whole beans about how to run my business, but we're having conversations with our artists. It's really not about quantity. It's about like making work that counts. Because like for a few years ago when. Especially kind of like coming right out of COVID lockdown when we were doing so much business online just off like PDFs, like you send out a PDF and people will be replying to you within minutes.
Wow.
And like we're not a gallery that has like crazy wait lists or anything. There was that sense of urgency and frankly sometimes false urgency that like, oh, this is my like one shot to have collect a work by this artist. So like I have to just take whatever I can get. Obviously, that's not the case for most artists these days. And so every sale, it feels like it takes multiple times the work and effort and conversation. And sometimes like that's a healthy thing, because I do think collectors are really asking themselves, like, okay, like, how am I going to live with this? How do they fit into my collection? Is this the work that I want, you know, from this particular artist?
Yeah.
We've had a lot of instances where, like, you know, someone expresses interest and becomes really excited about an artist, but then they go and, you know, kind of look at everything that they've made and the different shows they've done. And they might come back as like, oh, do you have something that's more like this? Instead of just like the one that's on offer. And most of the time it's no, because that work is probably from 3 years before. My takeaway from these conversations is like, oh, like, yes, like it really should be about kind of the quality of the particular works and the shows, and like, let's really make every piece, every art fair, every show count.
I hear that, and I feel like I resonate with it. It sounds healthier and more sustainable. And then I also wonder too, though, within that, because it sounds lovely, but it's like, then how do we still hustle and make it count, or make it repeatable, or who hones in? You were talking earlier about like whatever that new platform is, or that new way of connecting is. I think that's also the curious new challenge.
Yeah, that's also the thing. And part of it is like, because we're in the attention economy, I think a lot of people just look at exposure as something that counts. And so, and like I'm not saying this about like any particular artist, or, you know, dealers or anything like that, but this notion that like, oh, like I have to like participate in every show, like, or I have to show it, or you know, we should show this artist at like every art fair or something like that, because they're having a moment, whatever. Like, to me at least, as both someone who is involved in the producing, if you will, of these sorts of moments, and as a consumer of this kind of information, that's becoming less interesting.
Which part is becoming less interesting?
Just like participation and exposure for for its own sake. And I think that's sort of like constant reinforcement. I do think that is a strategy that we're seeing deployed by many. I don't know. I do feel like we're entering a new era of the attention economy. Like, I have some friends who work in like marketing, advertising, whatever, and I'm sure they can explain this much smarter than I can. They speak about, you know, it's not so much about like working with people who have a huge following. It's not the numbers game. It's about the engagement. So that kind of rise of the so-called micro influencers, and it's much better to have like 10,000 followers if 5,000 of them are actually watching and looking, instead of 1 million followers where like 200 people listen, you know?
For sure. Yeah, I think we've learned that even in the own growth of Friday Heaters. Like, there's ways, of course, to accelerate, like you say, that just initial impression of how many people are following along on this thing. But it feels like so clear that the art community, it's a big pool, but like the longer you hang around, it's this like intimate community that just kind of, as you were joking earlier, like travels around the world together. And
I do think there's something at stake, if I may posit that. Okay. Based on your engagement with social, because you weren't there, what artwork do you think took up the most attention last week?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's just that Beeple piece, you know, with the robots walking around.
This is not because I'm like some like cultural snob.
No.
Which it is.
You're in safe space.
It is my job to. I don't care. I don't care. Post it. I don't care.
We love that.
That's the kind of work that gets attention, engagement, if you will, in a setting like that. Like, I passed by that digital art section like my last day in Miami, and that was the only piece where there was like a throng of people.
It's so crazy
around. I truly believe, at the end of the day, art is speech. Art contributes to our larger political and social discourse.
Yeah, for sure. Agreed.
And hopefully provokes some thinking in us
That didn't
I
do
like
it.
I will fucking die on this hill. Like I don't think that is the kind of art that we will be talking about in 10 years, never mind, next week.
Yeah.
That's what I mean about like, okay, like this sort of like algorithm and attention economy and like these phones. And I was in Miami, what was it, like 5-6 years ago, when the Maurizio Catalan's what was it called, the comedian,
The banana.
the duct tape banana piece was there. It was profoundly annoying, because like we were just like sitting there at our art fair booth, and you're just fielding 100 questions a day. It's like, where's the banana? It's like, over there.
No, that's so brutal.
At the same time, like, to me, there is a fundamental difference still between like Catalan's piece and, if you will, this sort of like institutional critique aspect of it versus
Agreed.
this sort of like, and Beeple's a very effective player who is able to get certain kinds of reactions, but I think it's a momentary thing and fires people's synapses in a certain way. But
yeah, and you see it, it's like, oh, it's like it kind of hit on all of the things that we were just talking about. Like you see it, it's like, whoa, there's these weird robots and like all those tech guys, and then like, okay, what's it about? And then I feel like the about kind of, I couldn't tell you what it's about because there wasn't much there to the story.
It is what it is.
Yeah, so it is what it is. And I think go him for winning that battle of like the attention game for Art Basel 2025 Miami. I agree with you. It's like, I mean, that's my hope, without both of us sounding like pretentious assholes who like just are pissed that we didn't come up with the Beeple idea.
I'm gonna say this, and I'm gonna die on this hill too.
Just you and me on this hill, like Braveheart style with our swords.
I think a lot of people in the art world, well, for a lot of people, the particular valence that they're talking about is the art market.
Right.
Yeah,
Fair.
as the art world market has grown, many people have like thrown out in this word of democratization and letting more people in and things like that. And it has informed certain decision making on the part of like, galleries like us and even museums of showing not the most rigorous, interesting art, but that really plays to this particular attention economy. And it's justified under the language of we're making art accessible to more people, democratization. But I think that's actually a dishonest and very insidious deployment of that word. Art, at the end of the day, like if you want pretty pictures in your life, like there are better places to go to find it. The thing that's like lasting about people's engagement with art is that really compelling artists might challenge some certain preconceived notions we might have. And it might be a purely formal thing, They might really make us question like, oh, like this very oddly made thing could be considered a painting, and like this could be considered a mark, and this is what like it doesn't necessarily have to have some sort of like particular like social content or anything. But art should prod and provoke us to think, and I think those are the kinds of artworks that will continue to reveal different meanings, like layers of an onion over time, and that will continue to stay interesting. Like there's some artworks that even I might find very abstruse or even like ugly or abject, but over time, like I keep like thinking about it. I'm like, oh, like that's the kind,
Prod and provoke are such great words to use. The most fun is to go experience and take in this art and then huddle up with your friends or community members afterwards and be like, what'd you think of this? And the discussions and just the interactions that take place around it. That to me is like the most concrete example of the prodding and provoking can do.
Listen, like right now, arguably, we're very lucky in Los Angeles to have the most important institutional show.
Oh yeah, monuments at MoCA, very much. So,
decommissioned Confederate monuments that have been brought to both be exhibited, and then also a lot of contemporaries responding to, and like literally, someone like Carol Walker literally dismantling and subverting vestiges of a very, very, very painful racist past. Is it the prettiest thing that is gonna pop on your Instagram? And like, is that something that many people want to like have in their homes? Like maybe not, but like that's the role that art should play in our lives. And I think it's a hopefully it's a long-term, if not a lifetime commitment of learning together. And there's no one like message. And the thing about art, good art, what I think is good art, if an artwork is like super didactic, if you see something and you get it, like robotic dogs, then to me, like, that's not the most successful artwork. Because I think really interesting artworks, they don't present one meaning or interpretation to you. It should be something that really is multivalent.
It's
a smart word.
It's a very smart word. I'm just gonna like circle back and Google that afterwards. But the robotic dogs, it's like, I'm sure it would be tempting to like go cover that piece, because that's like what people are talking about.
We shouldn't underestimate the larger population's ability to engage with more complex ideas.
I like that.
And so, widening the art world in this particular moment when there's a ton of and growing interest in contemporary art, it should not be about simplifying things. And I do believe part of my job is to be a cultural gatekeeper. And it doesn't mean I only want to be snobby, and towards certain museums and certain big collectors because they're so important, whatever.
Sure.
That's not what I mean, but it's like, it is to champion and protect that space and to really like advocate and fight for artists that they want to make a statement about with. And oftentimes it's not the easiest kind of like pretty picture.
When you say that, does that mean that then you, in a sense, you're deciding to partner with an artist based on them as a person almost more than what they create? I mean, I'm sure there's like an initial impression of you're assessing the art that they create before you do a deal or you sign up to team up with them. But once you do, it seems like you're focused on just that person, and like what that person decides to steer next, you're gonna put yourself behind as well.
I mean, no, we do care about the work anyway.
That's good. I think that's refreshing. I think it's important to say that.
But to me, great artworks hit you from like myriad points. Like I really love Felix Gonzalez Torres's work. I think it works on so many different levels. And like I remember like one of the first times that I saw a Felix like candy pile piece, and even before knowing what it was, like it almost made me cry. Like there was something really like tender about it. And
even before you knew the story behind it?
I kind of got that.
Wow.
And I don't know why. To me, like that's exciting about art. And like we work with a lot of artists who work with moving image and technology. We work with a lot of artists, who engage with performance, and that really impacts our practice. We might not be able to sell a work of theirs, but it's still important to support them, trying to find them opportunities to show. And like that is the job of a gallery, and that's what gets me out of bed in the morning.
This comparison of art being like writing an essay or writing a book, and it's like when you read a great paper or a great book, I mean, it sets you alive in so many different ways. And thinking then of an artist telling similar stories or communicating that amount of information, but through just a visual language, exploring that work that's what we're excited about.
And I find that like in many ways, like that's the crux of my job. Take the artist's process and research and the end resulting artworks that come out of them, and to be able to kind of communicate the crux of what their work is about to the larger audience. And like it's not just collectors who might buy the work, but to curators and writers and everyone. In many ways, like that's what you're trying to do.
What we try and champion is like, it's cool that anybody can walk into a gallery and like take it all in 10 to 20 minutes. And it doesn't have to be this big, intimidating effort for people to experience art.
There is a certain strategy, if you will, which is hiding behind really abstract jargon. And I don't know, like over quoting certain theorists, things like that I think make art unnecessarily intimidating, and sometimes and to me often a kind of defensive strategy to make certain artworks seem like more highfalutin than they are. But there are ways to talk about those ideas that aren't like very difficult to understand and also boring.
There's got to be a happy middle, because I try and do that at times, but sometimes I'll still sit in a space or go to a gallery or see a show and be like, what do I say to this without,
I know.
And so it's like, in many ways, you and I are both, a takeaway from today's talk is like, the path forward is this middle road.
I appreciate like this kind of like opportunity to have a longer conversation. You do have to think about like okay, like what's like a digestible bit that's kind of compelling that will get attention. It's something that we're all navigating, thinking about. A big part of my job is selling art, but like I hate sales. Like I hate asking people to buy something, I mean, I have become quite shameless about it. It's because like I believe in the artist, and I believe in this work, and I believe in what we're trying to do. But I do really enjoy having conversations and telling stories, trying to, and hopefully that does lead to something. You have to be like cognizant of and play towards, and code switch sometimes to different audiences and different kinds of contexts.
I think I'm most similar to a gallerist. So when we've talked with artists, there's always that kind of fascination with like a creative process and these different minds that create the things. But then there's like this kind of equal footing that I feel with gallerists, who we're both storytelling, we're both excited and celebrating and championing artists. You have to play kind of both the business and the creative side. Going back to the cool factor, I feel like Commonwealth and Council is seen as a very cool gallery. That's my taste, but also I think word around town is that's how you guys are perceived. Is that something that's been intentional? Do you keep kind of that cool aesthetic in mind?
It's funny to me because I think we're deeply uncool.
Okay.
Cool to me is like people who have like a lot of social capital. Like I know myself. I can carry on a conversation with somebody. Like I can be pretty cute and charming sometimes, but I'm not someone who can walk into a room and like get the party started. And there are some like dealers who can do that, and like that to me is like cool.
Interesting.
So the gallery was started by my business partner Young. He was an artist himself, and it really was like an artist-run space. But and it opened in 2010, so we've been around for 15 years. Even now running a gallery, especially that's still, if you can call a 15-year-old gallery young, it feels like you're like building the plane as you're flying. So you sort of like figure things out as you go along. But Young does say that one of the kind of things that he had hoped for, and one of the intentions he had, was to not be an artist-run space that just is a great platform and does great work for 2-3 years and then fizzles out. Like he wanted to do multiple shows with artists and create this kind of narrative, if you will, across an artist's career, even though he wasn't really interested in representation and sales. That came much later in 2017-18, which is when I joined. Particularly in the beginning, and they really still form the core, I would say, of our program, are artists who were coming out of Los Angeles art schools around 2010.
Okay.
Including an artist like Art Kim, who was the very first show, and she's had like 5 solo shows with the gallery since. That sort of desire to nurture the artistic development was something that was important to Young, and I think a lot of our artists make work that touch on their life experiences and biography, if you will, and have some sort of like their social commitments inflect their work. And that's something that I think we've become known for. And that is, for better or worse, part of the zeitgeist of the art world right now, is broadening our notion of what art is, and and who gets to make art.
Meaningful art that people are paying attention to.
And to really look towards artists who perhaps may not have had the opportunities to show for ABC reasons that pertain to their identity. That wasn't what was in demand, if you will, in 2010 when they started, and creating that sort of space and standing for something. And again, I wasn't there, so but, creating that community, I think, was important. But
I think too, it's amazing, like just even that concept that I would say we've encouragingly become more familiar with, where we're getting the opportunity to see art from all sorts of different type of people. It's more familiar now, but you guys kind of were a big part of, building that out and being part of that shift, at least in LA. But when I think of who's been here for 15 years or more, you guys, there's not that many names.
Yes, we do have a certain, okay, if by cool you mean cultural capital.
Yeah, maybe that's, we should have defined cool, but cultural capital.
I know we have that.
Yeah.
But I also understand all of these things, it's not a static thing, you don't accumulate cultural capital and respect from, at least the curatorial world, and just it stays that way. You have to continue to work at it. And something that I think about a lot is because for the longest time, we felt like such underdogs. I remember doing our first art fairs in 2018, traveling to Basel, Switzerland for the first time or something, and feeling like such losers because we didn't know anybody. And there were these cool galleries, and they were kind of like, who the hell are you? At least that's what it feels like. Maybe they're
deep down, they're probably like, oh shit, new guys, these guys look cool.
I know that we're not in that position now, and at this particular moment, we do know what we're able to do, at least with institutions, for many of our artists.
I always use the comparison of coming from the music industry of record labels. Galleries function like record labels, and there's certain labels that develop their own identity, obviously in relation to the artists that they rep, but I think that have cultural awareness to them. If you think back in the 90s, Death Row Records back in the 90s, people knew of that name and that brand. Commonwealth has developed its own cachet, its own identity, which is such an amazing accomplishment. Especially on a kind of small, more boutique scale.
One thing that's cool is if you look across our roster, it kind of is all over the place.
It's wild. It's awesome.
But we do know who we are. And I think a lot of our audience and community too is what our sensibility is and what the through line is. So any kinds of new artists we might be looking at and excited by is we know pretty immediately if they make sense. And there's some amazing artists that that our whole team might love, but we would never work with, because it just doesn't make sense for what we do. You know? It was a real honor, but we presented a work by Andrea Fraser, a legend, and she wanted to do a paper stack piece. So for people to be able to take sheets of posters, kind of inspired by Felix Gonzalez Torres' work too. Andrea really wanted to make this poster, and they presented about 200 words that were banned by the Trump administration. Which one of those words is women.
What?
And so I don't know if you remember, but a few months ago, these words, it came directly from the New York Times when they reported on federal agencies, these words would trigger review. If the current political regime is trying to disappear these words, Andrea wanted these words to kind of spread like a virus, and for people to take these sheets of posters, I hope, she wanted to present that work with us because of a certain sympathical spirit that
Yeah,
she
what you did.
feels
Yeah.
with what we do, and of course our artists.
That's so cool. Yeah, building the story. Audience members, Jess, our sidekick here, behind the camera, editor extraordinaire, director of production for the podcast today, just chimed in with a question for Kibum. For artists like you represent that can be more challenging or things are a little bit more mysterious or opaque, how much do you thread that balance between wanting to tell the story and explain it to someone versus letting the art speak for itself, stay mysterious?
That doesn't trouble me so much, because at the end of the day, I think great works of art, you could talk about it for 2 hours, you could write a 100-page book about it, and there will still be things that are unexplored. You know, in literary theory, like different kinds of modes of interpretation. I forget the terminology now, but like one is like purely formalist. So like you look at what it is and you just sort of like come up with the interpretation on like the particular words or like the image or the object materials, blah, blah, blah. Another is like an intentionalist view, which is like, it is what did the author intend? And that should be how we understand, and that should be the kind of meaning. And then there's like the institutionalist, which I think is like what we really do in the art world, and you know, kind of like what Arthur Danto, who supposedly coined the term art world, the sort of a viewpoint that he subscribed to, which is that like we all imbue it with meaning, with our kinds of readings and interpretations of it. The role that I play is one small part of that. There's what like how I view an artist's practice and how I might explain it to someone. There's what the artist might think of it and describe it slightly differently. It all kind of combines, and again, like the reception, going back to what we were sort of thinking about before, the reception of the artwork gives it its meaning too, right? Is like, for better or worse, for the Maurizio Catalan duct tape banana piece, the audience reception to it, particularly, and this is not my favorite part, it having sold at auction and then the buyer like eating the banana, like that's all kind of like part of what the history and sort of, and if you will, the meaning of that work. I mean, one thing that I try not to do is to like over determine and dictate. I mean, there's certain sometimes like people like read something into art and I'm like, no, that's just like wrong, you know.
Too much.
So there are, it's not like all interpretations are valid.
Yeah. Okay. That's good.
But
yeah.
At the end of the day, like that is the most fun part of the art world. Like it's a dialogue.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I do research? Like I read a lot. Okay. I love books.
Great.
If I were living my greatest dream, like I would be writing books, but I travel too much.
Love that. I feel like we don't hear that much these days. That's a kind of a rarity.
Yeah.
Congrats. That's good.
And that's also why I sometimes like struggle with kind of like how we encounter and absorb and interpret information in like the age of social media, is like because I love like a long, kind of like a built argument or narrative. It is a discourse, and kind of like, you know, when we have book clubs or like, you know, remember all like the English literature classes we took over school, is like, yes, there are certain like wrong interpretations of things, but like at the end of the day, it's this like much more of like an open-ended communal kind of like discourse that we have, and art functions in a very similar way like that. And to the extent that we can really engage in that, like that's the most fun part. And so no, like I don't feel like my job is being some sort of like didactic
informant of specificity.
Yeah. Even at an art fair, sometimes it happens where someone will be like, I'll be like explaining an artwork and the kinds of like themes that they're touching on, the research that they've done. They might be like, oh, I know about this. And I'm like, oh, like I never thought of that. The artist never thought of that. And then we like convey that to the artist, and you know, maybe like that'll like plant a seed that becomes like another series. And so it really is about the conversation and dialogue. that's the unfortunate thing about the art fair context, is that oftentimes like you just don't have the time
Yeah.
to have like the most, because like most conversations, to me, in my opinion, they take a little bit of time to get going,
Totally.
Like,
We've noticed that here pretty much every time.
like you're on like a great like first date with somebody. It's like rarely is it just fireworks and like vibes from the jump. Like
Yeah.
you kind of ease into it. You're also reading each other. That is something that I think I am pretty good at. Like I'm not someone who can, like, again, I'm not someone who can walk into a room and really like rouse people up, and I would never be like a preacher, but I do think I bounce off of other people's energy pretty well. I like to listen to different people's thoughts and opinions, and sort of like what their expertise might inform. And it might be about the artwork that I'm showing that like I know much more about, but that doesn't mean that these folks can't bring some new insight. I think that's the fun part of walking into a gallery. You actually can't do that. If you walk into a museum, like it is what you like, you can read the wall label.
Yeah.
Maybe there's like a docent or invigilator that you can ask a couple questions to, but at a gallery, technically speaking, you can always ask someone to speak about the work for you. And we spend a lot of time giving walkthroughs to folks who come in. I do think that's like a key aspect, how one encounters artworks visually, and just that sort of like very like immediate sense, and really learning about the process and the content. If you really want to deeply engage with all of that, like that's when it's the most fulfilling.
Yeah, that's the magic. That's the magic spot. Yeah, well said. I feel like I have seen you so many places around the world in the country. Do you wrestle with like staying healthy amidst all that travel? Like any like travel secret tips?
Oh God. Yeah, no, you definitely do feel it in your body.
Yeah.
I do try to lead a pretty healthy lifestyle, and being in LA, it's a lot easier. We go hiking, play tennis. We have great farmers markets. We have Erewhon. Take all my money. But
Erewhon sponsor us. This podcast is gonna blow up.
Sponsor me.
I can't wait to see just this random ad campaign. Is that Kibum?
Yeah.
They got Kibum.
I'm ready. Like when I used to travel, I'm like, oh, like I'm visiting a place, so like I should eat the most delicious thing and blah, blah, blah. But then I realized like, no, but I'm traveling all the time. So it's basically like every week is a cheat week. Sleep is very important. I make sure that I try to get like 7-8 hours of sleep every night. But yeah, it's very, very difficult to keep any kind of routine with the sort of like travel schedules we do have.
Yeah, I commend you for navigating it.
I know.
Yeah.
I mean, imagine how good I would look.
Yeah.
If I didn't have to travel so much.
Shredded if you were here.
This is just 50% of my potential.
Yeah. The sacrifices you're willing to make for your artists, we celebrate it. We are grateful.
Yeah.
Thank you, Kibum.
Thank you.
Pride Heaters, Kibum Kim. That was the pod. We'll catch you next time.